Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yisro Hawkins. Well, we have more international turmoil, which is on the rise continuously. The U.S. politics, yet once again divided. Diarrhea in your pool water? Ooh, that's right. And more shootings and refugees forced out of their homes. These are just to name a few of the reports that we have for you today. But we open with Russian President Vladimir Putin as he expresses his grave concern over the direction that the world is heading. Let's take a look at the video and his sentiments.
Нет, а система ПРО продолжает строиться. Значит, мы были правы, когда говорили, что нас обманывают. С нами неискренне, ссылаясь на якобы имеющуюся иранскую ядерную угрозу при строительстве системы ПРО. Ну так оно и есть на самом деле. В очередной раз пытались нас надуть. Сейчас построили эту систему, сейчас ставят там ракеты. Так? Но вам должно быть известно, что ракеты эти закладываются в капсулу, которая используется для пусков ракет средней дальности «Томагавк» морского базирования. Туда закладывают сейчас антиракеты, способные поражать цели на расстоянии 500 километров. Но мы знаем, технологии развиваются. Мы примерно знаем, в каком году примерно американцы получат новую ракету, которая будет уже не 500 километров, а 1000, а потом больше. И с этого момента они начнут угрожать нашему ядерному потенциалу. Нашему ядерному потенциалу. Нашему ядерному потенциалу. Мы по годам знаем, что будет происходить. И они знают, что мы знаем. Это вам только вешают лапшу на уши, как у нас говорят. А вы, в свою очередь, вешаете своему населению. И люди не чувствуют опасности. Вот меня что беспокоит. Ну как мы не можем понять? Мы тащим мир вообще, и люди не чувствуют опасности. Вот меня что беспокоит. Ну как мы не можем понять? Мы тащим мир вообще в совершенно новое измерение. Вот в чем проблема. Делают вид, что как будто ничего не происходит. Но я не знаю даже, как достучаться. И люди не чувствуют опасности. Вот меня что беспокоит. Ну как мы не можем понять? Мы тащим мир вообще в совершенно новое измерение. Вот в чем проблема. Делают вид, что как будто ничего не происходит. Но я не знаю даже, как достучаться. Но я не знаю даже, как достучаться.
Well, you can definitely see he does have a genuine concern for what is about to take place.
And you can see it's heading once again in the direction of war. Yeah,
Yep.
war, nuclear war. Well, at an address to the State Duma, Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed the country's need to boost its defenses as NATO encroaches on Russian territory. Addressing the lower house of parliament on Wednesday, he said, "What more lessons are necessary today to cast away old ideological agreements and geopolitical games and to unite in the fight against international terrorism?" Russia is open for discussion on this most important question and has repeatedly expressed its openness for dialogue.
He continued, however, we now again, as it was in the Second World War, haven't seen positive reactions on the country. NATO is strengthening its rhetoric and its aggressive actions close to our borders. In this environment, we must pay special attention to strengthening our country's defense capabilities.
Interesting. Well, in a historic move by one of the members of the EU, the United Kingdom has voted to leave the 28-member union. Nigel Farage expressed his gratitude over the vote, explaining how the move will improve the quality of living for its citizens, as well as reduce the burden of immigration imposed on it because of its once belonging to the EU that, of course, encouraged its member nations to take in refugees fleeing war and famine-torn countries.
Addressing an audience, he also said how other members of the EU could be on the verge of leaving as well, since in times past no one ever talked about leaving the EU, but since Britain has, others could follow because the EU is failing and the EU is dying, and I hope that we've knocked the first brick out of the wall.
So I guess we'll see over time if this actually produces some type of a ripple effect throughout the European Union. Well, Iraqi forces backed by the United States and Iran entered the city of Fallujah, taking it back since ISIS took control 2 years ago. ISIS fighters have retreated as a result of Iraqi fighters and left behind mines and explosives. The political failure, along with warring, has led to economic problems in the country. One business owner of a reclamation yard says he hasn't sold anything for days, where his yard used to be crammed, packed with customers.
He said on a profitable day he'd make $5,000, but now he only brings in about $5. The father of four says that he's barely making enough to feed his own family, let alone pay the salary of a dozen workers. Although it wasn't that long ago when he had 10 times that many workers, with his biggest money makers being his fleet of cranes. He has hundreds of them, but none have been working since U.S. troops pulled out in 2011.
And a lot of those cranes there, Jeff, he was actually contracting to the United States military, so that's why they were so busy. But once they pulled out, there was not that great of a use for them. Yeah. Well, he blames the government for incompetence and corruption that has ground his rich oil country to a standstill. The average salary in Iraq is just $10 a day, and millions live below that. The electricity still only works a few hours a day, and in the poorest neighborhoods like Odor City, people still don't have clean water. Even with the fighting and advancing Iraqi troops, suicide bombers have still been wreaking havoc on the outskirts of the city, leaving hundreds of civilians dead in its wake.
Scrapyard owner's wife said that the only thing that they ever think about anymore is death and bombings. Wow, death and bombings. And that she dreads dropping her children off to school in the morning, saying that she would rather die with them than to live without them.
It's a horrible life to live. Well, some members of the United States House of Representatives are having a kind of political temper tantrum. Members of the Democratic Party had a sit-in on the House floor, refusing to budge until a controversial gun control bill is brought up for debate. John Larson, a senator from Connecticut, said, "Rise up, Americans. This cannot stand. We will occupy this floor." Well, these actions disrupting the House session, of course, and Republicans were forced to go into recess, and the cameras were ordered to be turned off.
Democrats in rebellion taking to social media and violating House rules, shouting out, "We will continue this sit-in and they will not silence our voice." Now, 76-year-old John Lewis led the revolt, an icon of the civil rights movement. Lewis said that he was fighting for the rights for people to live without fear of gun violence. Now, the president even congratulated him for his leadership.
Their demand is for House Speaker Paul Ryan to keep lawmakers working through the upcoming planned recess until the House votes on background checks and the no-fly, no-buy bill blocking gun sales to suspected terrorists. Well, Speaker Ryan's response: "This isn't trying to come up with a solution. This is trying to get attention." So, we see from both parties, there's frustration, but there's not any viable solutions that are actually going to bring about the desired results that they're seeking.
Right. Definitely a lot of disunity with the members. Well, continuing on the topic of public safety, Oakland police are in hot water this week after reports surfaced alleging that officers engaged in conduct which violated their oath and the public's trust. Now, Larry McGee has been following this for us. Larry, what exactly is taking place with this police department?
Scandal is gripping the OPD, with the city having made its way through 3 police chiefs in just a little over 1 week. The mayor is on a warpath and has vowed that heads will roll after allegations surfaced of Oakland police officers engaging in sexual misconduct with a minor. Mayor Schaaf says the city is hell-bent on rooting out the disgusting culture behind the acts and has now placed the department under civilian oversight. The domino effect of police chiefs falling began with the sudden resignation of Chief Sean Wendt on June 9th. His replacement, Ben Farrow, then resigned on June 15, related to undisclosed information that reportedly caused Mayor Schaaf to lose confidence in him. That brought Assistant Police Chief Paul Figueroa up for a shot, but he also resigned 2 days later. Ironically, residents say the behavior of the officers doesn't speak to the character of Oakland. The scandal itself, though, came to light after a young officer took his own life and left a suicide note alleging that multiple officers had been engaging in sexual misconduct with a teenage prostitute. The young lady is now cooperating with investigators and says that at first she didn't feel as if she was being mistreated. But now, at 18 and looking back in retrospect, she does think she was taken advantage of. No less than 14 officers are reported to have been involved in the outrage, with 2 having resigned so far. The mayor says that finding out that her own police officers have engaged in this sort of despicable behavior is so infuriating that she is pretty much speechless. Aside from fury, the red eyes that people typically get from swimming pools is being associated with the rather eye-opening cause. According to a new report, the bloodshot hue is actually a result of urine. The Healthy Swimming Pool Program, in league with the CDC, the Water Quality and Health Council, and the National Swimming Pool Foundation, released a report revealing that urine, when combined with chlorine, produces a poisonous gas that can turn a person's eyes red, but it can also damage the heart, lung, and the central nervous system. The report further challenges the common belief that bacteria are eliminated by chlorine. According to the CDC, despite chlorine's widespread use, outbreaks of recreational water illnesses have increased in the past decade. On the question of how bacteria are even finding their way into pools to start with, the report says that pool piers are leaking diarrhea, with stats reflecting that 20,000 people have acquired diarrheal illnesses from water ingested in U.S. swimming pools and water parks. The advice being offered is that one should keep their mouths shut and eyes covered up while swimming, or more sensibly, that one should simply avoid swimming pools altogether. Water quality is also an issue outside the water parks, however. The budding town of Abilene, Texas is receiving complaints about the dark brown color of its city water. In response to the grievances, the city has strove to offer reassurances concerning the water's safety. Officials are citing the region's abnormal rainy season as the cause for the water's condition, which they say is due to a chemical imbalance. The water is also reported to have an unpleasant odor. City manager Robert Hanna says the city is currently struggling with an issue related to manganese and iron, and that is what is behind the water's brown tint. The city manager says that manganese and iron at the water's present levels are not harmful, and that what the city is experiencing is a taste and odor issue. Water utility crews are said to be out and about town flushing out hydrants. The city's recommendation is that if one is experiencing a problem with water, they should contact city officials and have their lines flushed. They acknowledge that residents should not have to contend with the water and express their intention to restore the previous level of water quality back to its citizens. But in the meantime, they are also recommending that residents purchase a filter. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan Jeff, back to you.
Well, hopefully they get to the bottom of that water issue, because everybody needs clean water. Well, another act of gun violence, this time threatening the lives of dozens of people at a movie theater complex in Germany. The theater in the town of Wernheim, just south of Frankfurt, was having its first showing of the day around 3 p.m. when a man walked in wearing a ski mask and belt of ammo and carrying a rifle. One witness, who was an employee, said he told him to lock the doors and go into his office.
Initial reports coming out were saying that anywhere from 25 to 50 people could have been injured, but after the 3-hour-long standoff with German special forces and police, the suspect was shot and killed, and no other injuries were sustained to employees or moviegoers.
The motive is unclear at this point. However, they are ruling out this being an act of terror, as the man's behavior and the way he carried out the attack did not match that of a terrorist. It is suspected he was mentally disturbed and seeking suicide by cop. However, the matter is still under investigation.
Well, the unofficial start to summer in Chicago has been marked by gun violence. Over Memorial Day weekend, dozens of people were shot, leaving 6 dead. The Chicago Tribune reported that just from Monday night into Tuesday, a total of 15 people were shot, 2 fatally. According to the newspaper, that brings the total number of people shot since Friday to 68. Now, Chicago police have yet to release their official final numbers.
It's amazing. In 2015, a dozen people were killed and 44 injured on Memorial Day weekend. So police had announced plans to increase patrols throughout the city in an attempt to prevent that same violence from reoccurring. And of course, Jeff, it sounds like they need the help of a better solution to the problem of gun violence plaguing their city, because apparently the increased patrols didn't decrease the number of violence.
Went up.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, turning to a global problem now, a UN agency has reported 65.3 million people were displaced in 2015. Now, that's an increase of 5.8 million over last year. The UNHCR, or United Nations High Commission for Refugees, says never before has the number of displaced people surpassed 60 million.
That's right. As the world recognizes June 20th as World Refugee Day, it asks, why is this unprecedented crisis continuing to grow bigger? The UN places blame on conflicts and persecution. It also says a rise in xenophobia, which of course is an intense dislike or fear of people from other countries, and anti-refugee political sentiment abroad has made it difficult for countries to willingly take in refugees. And according to the UNHCR, the sad fact is 1 out of every 113 people on our planet is now either internally displaced or a refugee. And those numbers are extremely staggering.
So the question remains, is enough being done to stop so many people from losing their homes? Now, the fact remains, many people today live in countries that are filled with violent reality of war right on their doorsteps. Now, according to the UN report, 24 people are being displaced every minute. Now, that equates to 1,440 per hour and 34,000 people a day fleeing their homes.
Wow, that is some staggering numbers, the people who are having to actually leave because of the situation in their country. It hasn't gotten any better over the last several years. Well, we know that refugees are coming mainly from Asia and Africa, and more than half of them are children. So now the UN is petitioning for education for every refugee child and shelter for every refugee family.
Obviously, that is no small task. Just consider last year alone having over 65 million people displaced, and that is equivalent to the population of France, the 21st largest country in the world. Now, looking closer at the numbers, they can be divided into several categories. 40.8 million were internally displaced, meaning that they fled immediate conflict near their homes, but are still living in a war-torn country.
Interesting. And about a third of the displaced people, which is 21.3 million, have been settled as refugees abroad, while 3.2 million are still waiting for their asylum applications to be processed. Well, Maya Myler, head of humanitarian policy and campaigns for Great Britain's Oxfam, told Inside Story the numbers were disheartening but not surprising. She said, "This is the biggest refugee crisis on record."
She went on to explain at the individual level, you know, what we have to remember behind these mega statistics is that there's a family and an individual whose life is being shattered. It's really on all of us to try and rebuild their lives.
And it kind of sometimes seems like they're they're looking more so at the refugee problem, you know, as that being a problem instead of what is it that's causing these people to want to leave their homes, really not to want to leave their homes, but to have to leave their homes. That's what we need to really kind of be focusing on. But, you know, the nations aren't really coming up with any viable solutions. So, of course, more and more people are kind of forced out of their places. Well, Daphne Paquette, a senior legal advisor of the European Council on Refugees and Exiles in Brussels, Belgium, she agrees people are being displaced at an alarming rate and thinks that Europe is not doing nearly enough, taking in just a little over 1 million people last year. This is a small number for what she calls a continent that is extremely rich and well equipped to have those people.
She also told Inside Story, I think that access to Europe is becoming increasingly difficult. It is extremely worrying to see that Europe is closing its borders, making the journey to Europe more and more dangerous, more and more difficult. I'm sure you've all seen the pictures of those shipwrecked, people drowning in the seas, and this can only be explained by the lack of safe and legal channels to access Europe.
Yeah, but hundreds of people at a time in those shipwrecks, those capsized boats. The other stark reality, she says, is the vast majority of refugees do not have any resources, do not have any financial means to go very far, and they just seek refuge quite close to their home country.
Well, with millions of children and families who have lost their homes to war and now have no sense of a normal life, the refugee situation is looking pretty dire. But there is an answer to this problem, and Yishro Hawkins will bring it to you next. But first, here's how you can contact the House of Yahweh, and when you do, don't forget to order your free Prophetic Word magazine and monthly newsletter.
That's right, you can contact the House of Yahweh by writing them at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas, 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494 or visit them on any of their websites at www.yahweh.com, www.yisrohawkins.com, www.yahwehsbranch.com, or visit www.ypnnews.com. You can also email them at info@yahweh.com. And for all calls outside the United States, please call the number on your screen. And don't forget about the latest and the most resourceful Bible study tool on the internet today, the Yisro Says program, and you can find that at www.yisrosays.com.
Well, don't go anywhere. Up next is Yishro Hawkins bringing you the answer to the refugee crisis and much more. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
And I'm Katan Alexander.
Thanks for watching.